All right. Hello. Again, Dan McManaman, Movement Mortgage Renovation Lending Specialist.
Lisa Buckley, real estate agent, Keller Williams Metropolitan.
There we go. So today's topic is solely, we've done topics before on renovation loans, and we've kind of done, as I always say to customers, a 30,000 foot view of what renovation loans are. Today, we are diving specifically into the 203K loan product. Next week or a week after, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into Fannie Mae's product, but today's just 203Ks. Also part of the team is Maria Baxter. Maria Baxter is out on the road right now with some clients, so she's unable to make it today, but Maria is also with Movement Mortgage. So 203K, we have various different programs. The one that I find more utilized with the purchase side of transactions is what's called a limited, or people used to call it, the streamline. Okay. That is for non-structural work, specifically health and safety. I know a lot of times when real estate agents reach out to us and, they're, maybe concerned about the age of a house. Okay. Any homes that are built prior to 1978, FHA is concerned if there was lead-based paint. So we can remediate that. So that's a health and safety. If there's hand railings that are missing, any broken windows, if there's any flooring issues, maybe there's some mold potentially, that kind of fits into that limited. The one piece of information I want to make sure that everyone understands too is when people go out there on the internet and they read, and I always jokingly say, you can't believe what's on the internet, just like Abraham Lincoln said, it's not 35,000 worth of work. Okay, we have what's called the total renovation cost, which is the contractor's estimate. We have what's called a contingency fund. We discussed this previously. The contingency is money to help build in to cover any unforeseen things that could come up. And depending upon what's happening, it could be anywhere from 15 to 20%. The guideline does say 10%, but many lenders right now, especially with everything that's going on with material costs up and down, a lot of lenders are doing it 15%. If the utilities are off, it's going to automatically be a 20%. So typically what I say to customers, it's more like 26 to 29,000 worth of work, because we take that scope of work plus the contingency. And then there are some renovation loan management fees. We're not just going to hand you over, say, $30,000 and be like, hey, you're going to pay the contractor, right? No, we're going to hold on to it. And in a limited 203K, we're going to pay out in two processes. We're going to pay out if there's any permits that are needed, which typically there aren't permits that are needed on a limited 203K, because again, it's kind of, we just have to do some quick fixes, maybe things that an appraisal issue came up. And so we're addressing that, as well as maybe some wish list items, like maybe the customer wants to redo some countertops and some cabinets. So we don't need permits for that. But we're gonna manage the money. So there's going to be some processing there. So when we add that all together, that can't exceed 35,000. Now, a caveat, say one of the health and safety issues is structural, then it's no longer what's considered a limited 203K or a streamline. It's what's considered a standard or a full 203K. 203Ks, doesn't matter if it's a limited or standard, is for 1 to 4 unit owner occupied properties only. Okay, so if you're looking at buying, I've worked with many customers where they're looking at buying, say, a 2 or 3 unit property. You can do the 203K with that. Okay. Standard 203K, that's anything. You can, a lot of, agents, come to me, or customers come to me and say, hey, what can we do with the 203K? What's allowed? And I always say, it's easier to say what's not allowed. Okay. We can't do luxury items. We can't add a swimming pool. We can repair a swimming pool if a swimming pool is there, but we can't add a swimming pool. There's really no maximum on repairs. If you're buying the house for, say, $100,000 and you're doing $250,000 worth of repairs or $300,000 worth of repairs, and the value is there to support it, that's fine. There's no issues there. You can even knock the house down, which I know is mind-boggling, right? So you can find that house, and we have customers, of customers or agents in the past, and they say, this house is just better if it's knocked down. Okay, let's do it. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, you can do that. You can knock the house down as long as you keep that foundation in place and you build a new home on that foundation. You can do a full standard 203K. What's different with the limited, the one big major piece that's different from the limited to the standard is we need to use what's called a HUD consultant. Okay, and a HUD consultant, we're gonna have another video interview with a couple of different HUD consultants that I work with in the industry. And their responsibility is to go out to the property. They're versed in what the minimum property standards are for FHA. So they're looking at health and safety, and that's their first and foremost thing they're going to look at. They're going to give us a report. It's either called a work write-up or a specification of repairs, and it's going to outline the mandatory. Now, as we all know, the customer starts walking the house with the contractor and the HUD consultant. Hopefully the contractor is there at that time. And they start telling all their wish list items too, right? So then in the report, they're going to have they're going to mark those items as desired with a D. And then they're also going to be recommended. And the recommended is the HUD consultant saying, hey, these mandatory things need to be done. So maybe there's some electrical work that needs to be done. He might recommend, the HUD consultant might recommend that we also maybe upgrade the electrical panel. So that, maybe the electrical panel is only 100 amp. We want to upgrade it to 150 or 200. Okay. It's not necessarily needed, but it would be recommended for that. HUD consultants you can find on HUD.gov. You can find a list of HUD consultants in your area. Most lenders have good partnerships with HUD consultants. I know I have several that I work very closely with, depending upon where they're located. One real quick myth that, again, I want to bring out, especially since we're dealing with FHA loans today, and it's the same thing even with Fannie Mae's loan, which we'll discuss next week. There is no such thing as a 203K contractor. HUD does not endorse contractors. They endorse HUD consultants. There's a certification, everything for the HUD consultant, but there's no such thing as a 203K contractor that's endorsed by HUD. Now, there are some great resources out there, some great companies that they do some trainings for contractors that they can go on to, and they can pay for it, and they can get a certificate of that they're knowledgeable around the 203K loan. Okay. But just so if someone says, a contractor says, hey, we're 203K certified, that doesn't mean HUD or the lender has certified them. We as the lender will certify. We will call references. We will call suppliers. We'll check their license. We'll check their insurance. We'll make sure there's no open litigation against the contractor. So just want to get that out there. Okay. Now, there's a great program out there with HUD that's called the $100 down program. And what does that mean? Well, how we're structuring these renovation loans, 203K loan, is we're going to take the sales price plus that cost of renovation. So the estimate, the contingency, the fees. We add that together. There is a program. Typically, you're putting 3.5% down on it, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4 unit. You're going to put 3.5% down. But there is a program. If you go to HUDhomestore.com, this is a HUD website. These are bank-owned properties, REO properties, foreclosure properties. All those are all the same. And you can find homes that are owned by HUD. HUD repossessed them and took them back. You can find properties on there. They have certain properties that are identified that you can do as little as $100 down payment, as long as you qualify. Okay. So that doesn't go for all foreclosures. Okay. Because other banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, PHH, Fannie Mae, they all own homes. They all have foreclosure properties in their portfolio. These are HUD specific properties that you can put as little as $100 down. Again, as long as the customer qualifies. Now, there's another program that is awesome working with a customer right now that's called the Good Neighbor Next Door. Okay, and you can do this non-203K as well. The same thing with the $100 down. Okay, because it's the property's specified as a HUD home. So if it doesn't need a 203K, you can still do the $100 down. The same thing with the Good Neighbor Next Door. Now, the Good Neighbor Next Door is properties that have been identified again by HUD, and they are for these programs are for teachers, law enforcement, firefighters, and EMTs. Okay, most of these properties, not all of these properties, most of these properties are also in areas that are looking for revitalization. Okay, so it's not just all HUD homes. Okay, so there's going to be, if you go onto the HUD website, it'll actually, specifically say, $100 down and Good Neighbor Next Door eligible. Okay, so there's a great resource. I'm seeing a lot of customers that are, we're very frustrated with the way the market's going, with being outbid, and now they're starting to say, hey, what's my next option? And we have agents, wonderful agents like Lisa, that are saying, well, what about looking at, fixer uppers, maybe that house that's dated or whatever. And Lisa's going to expand more on this with us today, but maybe even looking at some foreclosures. Okay, too. And so then when the customer asks me, I'll say, well, here, go to Fannie Mae. You can go to HUD and, and start looking at some properties there. So that's that. Now, again, okay, so how's the loan structured? I'm just recap that. We have purchase price, we have the estimate, the contingency, the rental fees. That's what's called your total acquisition cost. And that number represents two things. One, that's what we want the house to appraise for. So we're going to give the contractor's estimate or the HUD consultant's, specification of repairs. We can give that to the appraiser. The appraiser is going to go out there and say, if all of this work was already said and done, this is what the value of the home would be. And that's where we're shooting for. Okay, that's what we're shooting for as far as the value is concerned. That's also what you put your down payment on. Okay, now, again, in this market where we have concerns about appraisal values potentially because, all these customers are, bidding over asking price, okay, just because of the shortage inventory. I'll say, and Lisa and I had this, conversation about how the 203K loan can work. I mean, there's a lot of loans, Movement Mortgage does a lot of, saving a deal, right? So I always say to agents, like, it hurts me to hear, transactions dying because of home inspection issues, where I'm like, whoa, well, maybe we can, if the customer really wants the property and the seller doesn't want to have to put the house back on the market, maybe we can kind of negotiate and do a renovation loan, do a 203K loan to save the deal. We can still save the deal with the appraisal issue, okay? Because there's a rule that, and I have a PowerPoint presentation, so all of you can reach out to me and I'll send you this PowerPoint presentation that has all the arithmetic with this. But the rule says that we can do whatever's lesser of the total 96.5% of the total acquisition cost, or 96.5% of 110% of the after improved value. So that means, say that sales contract is $310,000. Okay, so 96.5% of 310 is roughly $299,000. The 203K rule says, all right, we're going to take that 300,000 appraisal, which, oh my gosh, the house underappraised by 10,000. They don't have another 10,000, the buyers, to bring to it. The sellers are sticking their heels in the mud and they're not negotiating. You're buying a house as is. This is the price, whatever, right? So what do? Well, I say to the customer, well, hey, you like the appliances? Well, not really. They're kind of ugly. Okay, why don't we just take in a contractor's estimate, throw some appliances in there, And now we're going to call it a 203K. What 203K says that we can do a loan of 96.5% of 330, because 110% of 300,000 is 330. So whatever the lesser is. So yes, did technically the house under appraise, and it's technically is the homeowner what we call underwater, where the loan is higher than the appraised value. Yes, but what we see many, many times, especially now, when these customers, the buyers, clients are exhausted with, the home search, where they absolutely love this house. And maybe they got lucky, Lisa, the first house they showed them, they loved it and everything was great. The neighborhood was great. The schools, they knew the schools were great because they talked to the lender, and the lender was like, hey, that's a great school district where you're going to. And they already met some of the neighbors, and the neighbors seemed all sweet, and it's everywhere they wanted to be. They don't care. They want this house, and they will do whatever it is. Okay, so let me help save the day. Let's just do something. But a lot of times what happens is when we educate the customer about this possibility, then they say, well, you know what, Daniel? Kind of don't like the carpets in the bedrooms either. And I think there's hardwood floors underneath. So can we rip them up and maybe redo the hardwood floors and maybe paint some of the house? Yes. So I'm going in, with my renovation Superman cape, and I'm saying, hey, we can save the deal. It might take a couple extra weeks to close it because now I got to get the contractor in there. Okay. But the deal's not going to die. And sometimes what happens is when we start doing this additional work, now maybe they're not underwater. Okay. Maybe now the house actually is appraising higher because of that work that's being done. Maybe, and it could simply be just, painting and changing it from carpet to hardwood floor might be enough of a booster to move it up. Okay. So other big question I always get, okay, is, how quickly can we close these loans? Okay. To me, there's really not that big of a difference. Maybe 2 weeks, I mean, I typically can say I can close these loans in under 30 days from when I'm ordering the appraisal. Okay. Because if you look at a typical transaction, okay, you go under contract, you go in attorney review, and it depends upon where you are in the country who's watching this. I jokingly say the Mason-Dixon line of New Jersey's AK 195. It goes right through Trenton, cuts the state pretty much in half. And anybody above it, they're always using attorneys. Anyone south typically doesn't use attorneys, but there's still an attorney review time period. So once you're in that attorney review, you're doing your inspections. HUD consultant can be an inspector. HUD consultants I work with are also home inspectors. So we can replace that person there. So now we still are doing the home inspection. Once the home inspection's done, what typically is the next thing that happens? Appraisal. I have the HUD consultant's report. What am I doing now? I'm taking that and I'm ordering an appraisal. So we're still moving the loan the same way as if it was not a 203K loan and it was just a regular, say, FHA loan. All right. And in the meantime, we're getting a contractor out there to see, what's going on and to give an estimate. Loan goes into underwriting, comes out of underwriting, the appraisal comes back. Hopefully by the time that appraisal comes back, we have the contractor's estimate, we start buttoning up. I really only need contractors' numbers about 10 business days prior to the closing date. So that's kind of how I can keep the ball moving and close these renovation loans in a timely manner. But where the holdup is if a customer's waiting to get a contractor out there, then get those costs. And sometimes that's what stretches it out. So if we do have, Lisa and the agents come to me and they say, hey, how quickly can we close this? What's the process? Here we go. I'm going to kind of go outside of the box and kind of help streamline this. May or may not need a HUD consultant on this, but let's just get the HUD consultant on there to keep things going. Okay. They're going to replace the cost of a home inspection. So it's not like there's going to be, this crazy out of cost to the customer. And again, like once we get the appraisal back and we get the title back, everything's moving the same way. Right. So, and we don't refer contractors, but obviously doing these renovation loans for as long as I have, I know contractors in all these different areas that know the renovation loans. And we give, to agents, hey, here's a list of contractors, this contractor's in that area. And they give them a call and the contractor goes out there because they know, the urgency of what's going on. So can you close a 203K loan in 30 days? Yes, you can. You really can. I've seen even a lot of contracts coming back with 45-day closings anyway. So when they say to me, oh, we got 45 days of closes, I kind of laugh and go, all right, you gave me an extra 2 weeks. Thanks. Makes a little less gray hairs in the beard. So the next question always comes to me. It's like, what's a typical house? And I say every house you can do a 203K loan with. It doesn't matter. I've talked about this previously and I talk about it all the time. I would jokingly say I'm not just a president, I'm also a client. I did a renovation loan myself. My wife and I purchased our home in 2017. It didn't need a 203K, but we did a renovation loan because at that time, the dynamics of our family, and we were able to convert unfinished dormer space into a master bedroom and change another bedroom into his and her walk-in closet and everything. So when you're out there, you're looking at properties. The 203K loan is, I feel many times, and this is going to expand on this, as many times is it's utilized as the deal's blowing up. And I know I talked about that. Hey, don't let a deal die. Let me help save the deal. But it's not utilized enough in the aspect of, do you walk into a home and is the kitchen the way it wants to be, or the bathroom's the way it wants to be? Is the basement maybe unfinished? Would you like to do a new roof or a deck? Okay, expand the thought process, expand the mind. You can be a Property Brothers house. Okay. But yes, of course, it can be that Property Brothers house. It can be that it's a disaster. It can be, many of the foreclosure properties, I will say this, many of foreclosure properties, they will have to be a renovation loan. The condition of the property, it's just not going to work. You're going to walk in there. They maybe have, in a lot of states, it takes a long time to get someone foreclosed and actually evicted out of a property. I know New Jersey is a very difficult state. It could take 2, 3, 4 years to get someone finally out of the house. Unfortunately, we have seen customers when they walk into a house, it's been vandalized, whether it was, hopefully it wasn't by the previous, homeowner, but maybe other people went in there, they vandalized it, maybe tried stealing pipes. Maybe the house wasn't winterized properly and a pipe burst, and now you have mold created. So more times than not, a foreclosure property, whether it's a HUD home or something that's Fannie or any of the other larger banks foreclosure properties, it is going to be a renovation. It will be a 203K or a home style. But again, it doesn't have to be. It can be any house. I've worked with customers that were buying a home, okay, and again, like I said, everything, you loved everything, but it just didn't fit the dynamics of the house. So instead of paying cash out of pocket, they just rolled it into the mortgage and they kept their cash, especially with how low interest rates are. I mean, interest rates on renovation loans on a 203K loan is maybe 3/8 to a half a point higher. So it's nothing that's like astronomical where, we're beating the customer's getting beat up with the increase in payment. Typically what they're qualifying for on a non 203K loan, they're probably going to be able to qualify on a 203K loan. It may be maybe $10,000 less. It's not going to, make or break the scenario. Okay. As I said, we have Lisa Buckley here, and when I was talking to Lisa about me doing this class, and she was sharing her experiences, I kind of threw it out there. It's like, hey, do you want to be involved? And she, absolutely. So Lisa's here. She's going to speak from. I spoke obviously about the lender side of things and how loans are structured, but she wanted to share her expertise as a real estate agent. So, floor is yours.
You do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So I'll go over some of the contract tips. And also I want to put out there that I've become sort of the informal resource for Beverly to send. She sends people to me when they have questions about some of the foreclosure sites such as HUD Home Store. I can help people get signed up. I'm happy to do it. Fannie Mae Home Path, all of them, and sort of what the bid process is for submitting a contract.
It's not very easy.
Yeah. So I'm happy to help anybody out there. So just want to put that out there. So when you have a buyer that's looking at houses, especially in certain price ranges where what they can afford is honestly not, it's not move-in ready. I almost always have the discussion with them about, doing a 203K loan, especially if the work is cosmetic. If a house has good bones, for the most part, we're not inspectors, we're not contractors, but I've been, when you've been through this enough, you can spot what the big problems are. And then you can spot where a house isn't selling because the rugs are stained and that, there's wallpaper everywhere. And that might be a really good option for 203K. Another thing to consider as well is if the septic has failed.
Very good point.
I've had a couple of buyers actually use a 203K to do the septic where simply the seller didn't have the funds to do it themselves. And I mean, so now they're thinking you're a hero, bringing them somebody who can actually do the septic and who wants to do the septic repair before closing. So the 203K loan allows you to do it. You go through, you complete the purchase, and now you've got the renovation lined up.
We actually did one with Dante in this office. I did a home style renovation loan, but that's what the house needed. It needed a septic. So that's a very good point.
Exactly. So when you're looking at writing a 203K contract or a renovation contract, a lot of people get confused about what they should put in as the purchase price. What you're putting in is the purchase price pre-renovation. So let's say the house is being purchased for $200,000 plus $50,000, right? So obviously you want your buyer to be pre-approved for $250,000. But when you put in the purchase amount in the contract, it's $200,000. And when you put in to type of contract, type of loan, you can put in, if it's FHA, check mark FHA, but add in there 203K because that makes a difference.
There is an addendum too that we give, and there is an addendum too that goes to the contractor. The lenders will give about the verbiage as far as that FHA wants. But yes, it's a great point. I'm glad you bring that up because we don't care as a lender. We don't care what the loan amount is in the contract because the loan amount, we don't know what it's going to be. It's a sliding scale, but the financing line, I'm so glad that you brought that up because that is very crucial because I just feel like I hate when I have to go back and ask agents for addendums or attorneys for addendums because I feel like it's being a nuisance. So, but thank you for that.
You definitely need to include the FHA addendum in this contract. And we've got it here in the templates. Now the appraisal. So when you're looking at, if you're, doing some homework ahead of time before writing the contract and with your buyer making the offer, the appraisal is going to be based on the post-renovation value, as Daniel mentioned. So what you want to do is go out there and take a look at what similar homes have appraised for, and just check, right? Like if they're buying, if they're going to be in a position where it's not going to appraise, nobody's, everybody's going to be a little bit unhappy. But if you go, like I just recently had a buyer close on a 203K, and it was a 2-family home where he was living on one side and was renting the other, first-time home buyer.
Okay.
And
Good for him.
I know.
Yeah, great investment
know.
opportunity there, right?
Exactly. And when I looked at the comps, I'm like, oh my God, you're getting the deal of the century. Because even with the renovation.
Because she's
work-
awesome.
Even with the renovation work, all the values of the homes nearby were still higher than the post-renovation value. The reason why he got this deal is because I talked to the listing agent and I said, my buyer is willing to actually do some of the repairs. And she said, great, my seller is not.
Yep.
He doesn't want to do any, he'll do some basic things like he put in the radon system, he fixed the septic. But beyond that, he didn't want to hear about it. So I told her, look, he doesn't want to hear about it. We're just going to fold it into the 203K. So we'll make this as smooth as possible. The other potential misconception about renovation loans is that you can't ask for a closing cost concession as well. You can. You just have to be careful again about the total appraisal. And
Well,
all
the
the
city,
details.
the seller concessions is based upon the sales price.
Mhm.
So, and I know sometimes customers think, well, because the total acquisition cost is higher, I can get more of a seller concession. No,
Right.
if the seller concession is on the sales price and it can only be used for closing costs, the customer still has to bring their down payment
Right.
to it. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
But when you're getting into a situation where those extra funds just might be handy, and especially if you're in a situation where it's going to be able to appraise,
Mhm.
just keep that in mind that you can still ask for.
Yep.
I put in here anticipate extra time for the HUD consultant because that's been my experience. But if you're working with an experienced lender like Daniel, he can streamline it for you. And that actually is important because not all lenders, and by the way, Keller Mortgage does not do renovation loans, just so everybody's aware. So not every lender does it. And not every lender has an experienced team. And I've found that out before. I have in here myth, Renova funds can only be used for the FHA required repairs, as you've heard from Daniel. That's not true. However, let me say that if you have an FHA buyer and you're trying to have poor buyers competing in this market and being beat out by every conventional offer, even cash offers, if you come in with an offer saying, I have not just an FHA buyer, but an FHA 203K buyer. So if repairs come up, they're going to finance it. Now you've just taken yourself, you've removed that objection to the seller.
And what Maria and I will even do is we'll even reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, you know what? I'm an expert in this. This is what I do. I know these loans inside out and backwards. And we have, here at Movement Mortgage, we have a dedicated team. I have Maria and I, we have our own processor. All that Jen does are renovation loans. So she's not going to have, a 2 or 3K loan and then also, a jumbo loan and then also a USDA loan. No, it is renovation loans. Our underwriters only renovation loans. So, to piggyback on, a lot of lenders with the COVID time, they got out of doing renovation loans, and I haven't seen it even really coming back. Although we're not out of COVID, but you know what I'm saying. We didn't get out. We're still very strong, and to have that, everything's controlled in house, and it's all, with a team, a dedicated team is huge.
I'm going to just point out another scenario. We can often look at roofs and eyeball and see, when you see it starting to get like, two-tone, different, the dark streaks on the roof, you see that it's near end of life. But if there's no leaks, the seller's going to say, out of luck. So in 2, 3 years, maybe the inspector will say, yeah, you're going to have to replace this roof. I've actually made offers where I've gone to the listing agent and said, we see that the roof is near end of life. My buyer's going to take care of it himself.
Yeah.
So you're, again, removing objection, but you're also helping the buyer not get into a position where they can't afford the home they're buying because they all of a sudden have this out-of-pocket expense.
Yep.
They weren't. Same thing with the furnace that's 30 years old. Okay, well, I always say, don't replace something that's already working, especially, if it's a furnace. But if, for example, they would want to, like, let's say it's, has a couple clanks here and there,
Yeah.
right?
You could do it.
You could do it. And so this is an opportunity to work with the listing agent to say, yeah, I know you have these other conventional, offers here, but as you know, in the state of New Jersey, there's no such thing as an as-is sale. Everybody's going to inspect and everybody's going to have the opportunity to back out on an inspection.
That's huge, because that's all I see. I hear that all the, but it's as is, So what?
People can say
You
they
know?
waive it, and then their attorney's going to say, oh, no.
Yeah.
You're now, if they say they're going to have the inspection for information only, yeah, I mean, look, we hope we can count on people's words, right? But again, as the buyer agent coming in with the buyer who's willing to finance repairs that come up through the home inspection, you've just removed a concern by the seller. You've just made yourself less of a risk.
Yeah. And I'm always having, again, obviously, because I'm always, my expertise, but I'm always having that conversation with customers like, hey, you're looking at houses, what's the condition of the house? They'll send me the listing. I'll try to hopefully take some, there's some good pictures on there. Hopefully not too good of pictures the photographer did. But sometimes you can see, hey, this house looks like the bones are really good, but it looks like there might be some outdatedness into it, and I'll have that conversation with the customer and say, hey, we have this program called a renovation loan. Here we go. And let me explain it. And I'm going to say, anytime I spoke to the agent or called the listing agent and said, this is how we're going to streamline it. I'm going to stick to my word and we get it done. And, I haven't had any listing agents ever, really balk at the offers, because they, I'll say, hey, what agents you want to talk to? Here, I'll give you a whole list of agents you can talk to, and they'll back it up, and we'll go from there. So,
and I would actually offer out there listing agents. If you happen to have a property that just seems to be getting FHA offers, depending on the area, depending on the type of home, you can actually have the like during the inspection period, or even up front when they submit the offer, say to the buyer's agent, are your buyers willing to use a 203K loan for any FHA required repairs? Because my sellers don't have the funds, or they're selling as is, or it's an estate sale, right? So like they don't know, they don't know anything. Like the kids are selling mom's house and they don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Right. So listing agent can actually say to the buyer's agent, look, I'd like for you to consider lowering the risk by talking to your buyers about 203K. I have a great lender.
and actually, I have worked with agents that had a listing that they knew it was either dated, it fit into, hey, I think this is a perfect renovation loan house. We just did, if you go to my business page, we just did a preview of a property. He is a Keller Williams agent over in Pennsylvania. And he said, hey, I got this listing. It has to be a renovation loan. You walk up to it and like, oh my gosh, when we got inside, it was like, oh my gosh, this house is not that bad. The bones were just absolutely amazing. But he's thinking outside the box and said, hey, I want to market this house. So we went out there with the HUD consultant last week or 2 weeks ago, and the contractor is going out there next week, and they're going to take the report, and we're going to already have numbers. So we're going to have a package to hand off to a potential buyer to come into the house and say to that buyer's agent, hey, you know what? We already have the contractor, we already have the HUD consultant, and we already have the lender. Everything's all here. Here we go. And you move forward.
And another reason that's great for the listing agent is you now have more control over the process.
Yep.
Which is in a good way, right? Like, so everybody is happy because, you get into a situation where a repair is needed, and let's say it's an FHA required repair. the buyer's taking a chance on having that repair done, if it's required that the buyer do it, before closing. What happens if the deal falls apart, right?
Yeah.
So the renovation loan actually allows you to do that work post-closing.
Yeah. I always say, piggyback on the septic piece, right?
Mhm.
I always say, when it comes back, hey, something failed. I always say, wouldn't you rather your guy doing it, not the seller's guy? And I don't want to make it sound, like, oh, we can't trust the seller or anything
Right.
like that, right? But you want your guy doing the project, okay? And we're going to do it afterwards, and you're going to be able to have your eyes on it. And the other great thing here with the renovation loans, we have your back. The lender has your back. We have affiliations, contractors, I have some contractors, semi-business stuff. But a lot of times I would say to the contractor, look, yeah, our allegiance is the customer, and we need you to do X, Y, and Z. We need you to take care of these things because I can legitimately see where the customer is coming from. We're going to get a very detailed estimate too. So that's very, very crucial for you all to understand. We're going to hold that contractor to those numbers. Contingency fund, as we've discussed, over and over again, it's there for unforeseen things, and then it could be, for wish list items.
There's another thing that comes up often, and that's what if the estimate comes in over what your renovation budget is? So that does happen. One thing, that you have the conversation with your buyer up front, like, yeah, you want these cosmetic things done, but what if, here's some structural things too, or here's some, kind of must-haves. Are you prepared to give up some of the cosmetic, put that money in a piggy bank later, for future renovation?
Yeah, when customers come to me, deferred maintenance, that's what we call it. Deferred maintenance, septic, windows, siding, roofing. Yeah, those are sellability factors. Those are things that, the appraiser is going to say it's deferred maintenance, and it's expected that you're doing that. But the other thing is, again, I'm going to lean, the two HUD consultants that I've worked very closely with in the industry over the years. Donald Good, he's based out of New Jersey. He's also a home inspector. I know he also works very close with Stephen DePaul. And, my boy in Pennsylvania, Paul Hollop, both are home inspectors. They know the loan process. They know they're certified HUD, and they know they have contractor, they have engineering backgrounds, and they do so many of these, okay, that they know what costs are. So when they're given the report, their numbers are pretty darn close to what that contractor's numbers are going to be. And if they come back higher, now again, I always say to contractors, look, for as many bids that you give out, I probably see 3 to 4 times that, because of sometimes customers, we can do a 2 or 3K, we're talking here purchase wise, we can do a 2 or 3K on the refinance side as well. So those who are viewing this, agents, the consumers out there, it can be done, like the love it or list it. Okay. I kind of know what costs are. And if I think things are too high or too low, and I kind of have that conversation with the customer. I had a deal that just came in. The customer was dead set on using this one contractor. I saw the numbers, went away for the weekend, and then the customer sent me an email and said, we're pivoting, going to a different contractor. And they found a contractor that came in with some numbers that are a lot more reasonable. But that's where we have your back. That's where we have your back as the lender. Again, my expertise is I know what things should probably cost, and kind of help narrowing that down for you.
Red flags.
Yes, exactly.
And I can attest to the fact that Don Wood actually is pretty close.
Yeah, Don.
I
Yeah.
actually had a contractor say he's actually pretty much on.
Yeah, Don Good and Paul Hopp, they're there. So in conclusion, Lisa, again, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
I can't say how much I appreciate, being able to give all of you real estate professionals, input. But 2 or 3K loans, any house. It's any house. It's not just that, beat up house. We can work the costs onto the sales price. It's a one-time close also. So real estate agents, the house closes, then the work gets done and you're out of the picture. I'm still stuck with it. We're still there. Okay. Because again, we're holding on to the money and it's paid out in a process. And here, Movement Mortgage, we have a nice, fast, streamlined process. You follow how I say and how Maria, we're guiding you. We can close a loan in a quickly manner. You divert from our path and you go down the path less chosen. And then that's when it gets a little hairy. So again, thank you so much, Lisa. Any questions? You want a copy of the PowerPoint that the deck that I put together, you can reach out to me, daniel.mcmanaman@movement.com. Our Metropolitan Basking Ridge office, this is being recorded through Zoom on my business Facebook page. Also, this is being recorded. A couple of times I had calls coming in, so that's why I kept hitting the screen. So it didn't interfere with any of the audio. But thank you again for everyone out there. Any questions, feel free to give me a call, 215-534-3464, or send me an email. And Lisa, how can people get in touch with you?
908-246-0077 or email. Happy to help.
Thank you so much again. And any questions, reach out, let me know. Best way to get a hold of me, give me a call. I'm leaving the office now. I'm going to be in the car for a while, heading back home. So give me a call or send me an email. Okay. Thank you very much.
Wait,
Have a great.
what was it? HUDhomesite.com?
HUD Home Store.
HUD Home Store.
Store.
Joe, send over me an email and I'll email you the PowerPoint presentation. And in that is actually a hyperlink. You can go right to it. Okay.
And if
Awesome.
you need help signing up, you're actually going to have to sign up as an agent
Okay.
with HUD Home Store. And we have, all the IDs that you need, all the.
Excellent. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you for joining in. And you guys, again, reach out, let me know. Candace, I'm going to be signing off. So just shoot me an email and we'll get everything over to you. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
I definitely have to go.